Hello, welcome. How's everybody doing? This is MongoSlade. I am trying to look something a little bit different. How's everybody doing this evening? I'm a little late, unfortunately. But that was because I was trying to help my old man with something. Now I'm finally back, can relax. Uh, okay, okie dokie. So tonight, we're going to talk about Attack on Titan. We can talk about the finale, the last volume or the last set of chapters. I didn't do the entire series. I've only been talking about the end for the most part, because to me, how you finish the story is as important as how you start it. Attack on Titan started out extremely strong, extremely, but the finish, oh brother, that finish is literally something else. Uh, so let me know how everybody's doing. Hello, WG Phil, how you doing, man? You doing all right? Actually, it was seeing Phil's comments that made me hurry up and get on here because I was like, whoa, I'm late. Kind of late there, bruh. But I'm glad everything is doing all right. You know, hopefully everybody's doing fine this evening. Give some more people a few seconds to come in. Um, what are you guys reading, watching, doing before we talk about Attack on Titan? Hopefully I won't spend the whole episode talking about it like I did last week, but I might because I'm pretty confused over how the series managed to end. But can you guys hear me? If you can hear me, give me a wave. If you can't hear me, let me know. I am about to set up this thing. So yeah, I don't have to hold on to it. WG Phil says I was on the car on the Western Front. I've never heard of that. What is it about? Uh, Let me know what it's about. It sounds like something I should. That's that's highly unfortunate. It certainly sounds like something I should. Uh, Now there's issue. Oh, can you still hear me now? I'm trying a new microphone, and this thing, I'm not sure how it works. I can't check it. So I guess we'll see when it's over. I'm just gonna hold it rather than trying to clip it to my shirt. Okay, so we're gonna start doing Sin City as well. We're gonna do Sin City. Sin City is probably gonna start in January when I get all of the up issues. Because I don't have issue one. I mean, by issue I mean volume. Sin City, I think is, I don't want to say 9 volumes, but it feels like it might be 9. I only got 3. I got 2 more coming. Um, a Dame to Kill for. I believe I have. I have That Yellow Bastard. I have. Um, I'm waiting for the first volume to come in because that's what the first movie is based off of. So that's what we're going to talk about. Uh, Probably in the beginning in January. Probably going to start talking about it. Sin City and doing digging in on Sin City. So that's good. I still haven't read My Hero Academia or Chainsaw Man, the new volumes yet. I have them, but I haven't been reading them. I read some other things first. All right, so hopefully the audio is improved, and we're going to talk about Attack on Titan. So let's get into this. Let's get into this. Okay, so last week I said that I was pretty upset with Asiyama due to the handling of the characters in Attack on Titan and him abandoning some of the better aspects of the characters and who they are. and letting the world become overwhelmed with nihilism. I was not a huge fan of that whatsoever, but um, I was willing to cut him some slack, at least on this issue. I was willing to cut him some slack to see if he was going to turn it around, because I don't know how the story is going to end. Well, at least I didn't at the time. I didn't know how the story was going to end. So I was like, look, you can't attack the guy. If I don't know how the story is going to end, I have to wait till the ending first. So I got the ending, and I'm unhappy. Still unhappy with how Attack on Titan ended. So I am greatly disappointed in Attack on Titan. um, I don't know what he was trying to do here, but I will certainly give it my level best to look into it and try to analyze those final chapters as much as possible. But I looked at it and said to myself, "Oh boy, um, not so sure if this is for the best." How is the audio? Because WG Phil said the sound is fading, and he hasn't said anything since, and nobody else has said anything either. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with this audio before I get started, um, and I really get into this thing and start getting distracted by how bad the audio might be. Okay, so let's see here. I got a page. Usually I would have more pages of notes, but I tried to cram as many of my thoughts and questions and stuff like that onto one page, so I won't overdo it. I don't want to do um, a complete dissection of every single thing in the series, especially not in those last chapters. I certainly don't want to do that. So overall, I think that the ending was pretty weak. Again, nihilism kind of really took root, and they never got rid of it, I don't think. In fact, the series, it didn't get darker. It got a little bit dark. Now let's talk about that first, because the rumbling happens. This is where Eren and Zeke work together to awaken all of the Titans that are within the walls of Paradise or Paradis or whatever they're calling it. And I think they said it's like a million or whatever colossal Titans marching along the world. And this is Eren's plot to kill the entire world's population to protect Paradis or Paradise or whatever we're saying here. Okay, I'm just gonna go with Paradise, so I won't have to keep saying whichever one. So they were trying to stop the rumbling, and this is when things get extremely dark, because we're watching there's a lot of filler in this part too. Like, we get caught up with some characters that are, in Marley, and we watch like the little thief boy, and we're following this character down to his grisly death, where he gets, if I remember correctly, something fell on his head and cracked his whole skull open. And then his brother is crushed by a colossal titan. And it is horrific, which is kind of, the kind of stuff that Attack on Titan is based on. So you're saying to yourself, like, man, of course it's going to be dark. But you're like, holy hell. Like, there's literally, you have no real attachment to this character. And we're just going to watch him get stomped. And then there's like pages and pages of characters just being stomped to death by colossal titans. So then they begin to think about how they're going to stop these titans. And, one of their plans is to, well, the military is going to drop like barrels of oil on them, because the colossal titans are flammable, or they're hot. So they plan to drop like barrels of oil on them and hopefully blow them up, but that doesn't work. So then they have the plot of they're going to fly the flying boat to the nearest town to try to find Aaron and, try to negotiate with him, which is one of the sillier aspects of the later part of Attack on Titan is how much time they spent trying to quote unquote negotiate with Aaron, which is, foolish. I mean, guys he's stomping 80% of humanity. Like, why are we sitting here having conversations with him about it? But whatever. Anyway, this is where Floach pops up. He shoots the boat, puts a bunch of holes in the gas tank so it can't fly. And now, the team needs some time to fix the ship. And what they did is they send Han Zoe, who is one of the original members of the cast. She leaves the ship to fight colossal titans by herself. And this is the death of Han Zoe. And she, of course, is burned alive because she attacked colossal titans with nothing but a sword, which seems completely out of character for such an intelligent character. Like when she used the thunder spears, okay, that kind of makes sense, but she doesn't have a lot of those. And then she attacks the titans with her sword, and her arm catches on fire, and she's like, "Ooh, hot!" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, you should know this by now that the colossal titan is incredibly hot, and you can't touch it." And she continues to fight the titan and gets burned alive. Now, I understand what you're saying, because I was going to get there in terms of they had kind of foreshadowed that she was ready to go. You know what I'm saying? Like she was looking for a reason to get out of here. She was she was one of the characters that was kind of like, yeah, I'm just looking for the right vehicle. Death by Titan just seemed like the right move. But I'm saying from a creative perspective, Suicide by Titan, and it was meant to be heroic, but it came across as being out of character because she knows so much about the Titans that she knew she couldn't do what she was doing. And so it couldn't be nothing but suicide. And that is one of the things that I think is corrupted by the nihilism of the story. Because you try to tell me, if she was really the only one who could do it, then I think it would have been heroic. But when it came across like she's just a dumb idiot who's going to basically jump head first into these titans and dies, it kind of loses the heroic element of it. It kind of loses the self-sacrifice element of it. And I really struggled with whether I liked it or not. I'm kind of leaning more towards don't like it, because I don't think it really fits the character, even though I know she was stressed out and basically it was suicide by Titan. But it was really supposed to be pitched as she was sacrificing herself so that the team could succeed, and so the plan could go forward. But you really kind of question the efficacy of her sacrifice, about whether the sacrifice even made any sense. I think she knocked one Titan down, and that was pretty much it. She got killed. I think she attacked two Titans and then died. So it really didn't do you any good. You had somebody who was a powerful strategist, even though she might have been burnt out, and a lot of these people were at this point in time. You have to think that if you want to maximize your ability to succeed in any given endeavor, you want to keep as many pieces on the board as you can. And so if you were looking at this story from that perspective, and that's what kind of what they're doing, you need her to still be around. So there was other ways that you could have gotten rid of her, because I have no problem with her dying. But I was just really, I'm not sure if that was the best way. So we go from there to They get to the flying boats. They try to stop the Titans. They find Aaron. They crawl inside of Aaron's body, I guess you could say, or the bones that that makes the founding Titan's body. And then, of course, they have these great series of fights where the founding Titan can create or manipulate or maneuver the bodies of previous Titans. So there's different versions of the Beast Titan in there and different versions of the Warhammer Titan, et cetera, et cetera. And there's this like huge brawl going on in there. And that was kind of cool, you know? Like that part of the ending of the series remained cool was the fight scenes, the Titan on Titan battles were brutal, really graphic, they were good. I kind of questioned a lot of the storyline elements, however. So then stuff starts to kind of get a little confusing. Um, because they continue to tell the story of Emir. And you get that, okay, Emir was a slave girl who was ruled by King Fritz. She was forced to bear his children. And then ultimately she was killed and her body was fed to her children, which of course kept the legacy of the Titans going forward. But then we see that she has the ability to, as the first and the founding Titan, she has the ability to control and manipulate other Titans. And somehow Zeke also has that ability. That's how the rumbling is occurring because he is controlling all of the Titans. And then there's the pathway, which is not quite heaven, not hell either, but a place. I think they described it as a place where neither life or death matters or has a meaning. And if I remember correctly, I believe Full Metal Alchemist also had a similar realm. And this is where Al was for all that time in the series, that he was in this place where he was neither alive nor dead. And essentially, it was his body was chained to something. And so it was meant to be a spiritual plane, an esoteric plane. And we get Armin, who gets kidnapped during the battle. He gets eaten by, I think it was like a pig titan or whatever. And he ends up having a conversation with Zeke. And this was probably my favorite part of the finale is Zeke, whose idea is to euthanize all of the Eldians so that the Eldians cannot reproduce, and therefore the Titan problem will go away. He had essentially adopted a conception that life is all about multiplication. And you see like the little centipede worm thing that they got, and this thing is all about multiplying, creating more and more and more. And he says like this is what life is about. And if you're a Christian, you realize that that's one of God's I don't want to say commandments because that's not the right term. It's one of the missions that you get from God is to be fruitful and multiply. And so you get the idea that Zeke sees that life is about multiplying. And the only way to stop the horrors is to stop the Eldians' ability to multiply. And through this conversation with Aaron, he learns that life is not about multiplying, that life is about precious moments, moments of happiness, moments of togetherness, moments that make life worth living, little things. Armin talks about, running races or reading books or eating ice cream or whatever the case may be. And these are moments that he felt like this is what I was born to do at that particular time. And this wakes Zeke up because he starts remembering, hey, I had these moments too, where he was playing catch with the scientist. I think his name was Mr. Casaver or something like that. And he says like, hey, I would have been happy if just to play catch forever. saying that, life is not just about multiplying. Life is about living. It's about connections. It's about togetherness. It's about bringing people together. This is an important thing because this comes into uh, it becomes an issue with Aaron and Mikasa. It becomes a thing with Emir later on. So Zeke wakes up and he's no longer sort of nihilistic. He kind of sees that the rumbling needs to stop, and he essentially, surrenders. And not in a traditional surrender, but he materializes himself so that Levi can find him and cut his head off, which is exactly what happens. And that stops the rumbling. So all of these Titans now no longer move. And as they were doing the big battle within the founding Titan, I think her name was Pike or Pieck. I don't know how they were pronouncing it. She wrapped a bunch of bombs around Aaron's neck. Uh, Later on, Jean activated the bombs, blew Aaron's head off. And then the little centipede thing comes out of the neck of the founding Titan, and Raynor starts fighting with it. They never really. I flipped through that thing 100 times trying to figure out what that was supposed to be, and I don't think I got it. I don't think I really understood it. Like it never had a name. It never had. It was just kind of life, like it was an amoeba or something. And Gabby, who shot Aaron's head off, she realizes that that thing appeared when Aaron's head was shot off. So maybe they figure if we destroy that thing, we can stop this. So Raynor is fighting with it, and everybody else is fighting with it, and all this kind of stuff. And the thing starts to emit steam, and the steam that is emitted from this, it turns the entire cast into Titans. So all the remaining cast members, Connie, Gabby, Jean, they're all turned into Titans. And that was crazy. You know, you say it's called the hallucinogenia. Where is that in the manga? I'll tell you, I flipped through it. I don't think I saw a name for it. But it was a thing that they were combating. So once Aaron lost the founding Titan through having his head cut off, well, blown off the neck, and then Armin transformed into the colossal Titan to separate all the bones and everything. That was actually good strategy. Aaron continued to live by turning himself into a colossal Titan, and then him and Armin starts to fight. So as all of this is going on, Mikasa starts having, these thunderous headaches. She's having these terrible memories of all this crazy stuff that Aaron has said to her. And this is where they have already gone. I sped past where Armin went to the path and was trying to talk to Aaron. And Aaron was like, no, this is what I decided to do. I'm going to give everybody the freedom to try to stop me. So you can't talk him down. So they have decided that the only way to stop Aaron is to kill him. So Levi uses a thunder spear to break his teeth. Mikasa flies into his mouth and cuts Aaron's head off, killing him. Now, this was, I think, probably the best you could do in the situation, given how the things existed at the time. Well, like I said last week, you only had two ways of handling this situation. Either one, you wish everything backwards and then you kind of hand wipe it and say, well, it was all a dream, or nothing really happened, or we're going to try to reverse time, or whatever the fuck. Or you had to kill Aaron. They went with the second option, which is the best option, if we're being honest. And Mikasa, of course, was very distraught over having to be the one to kill Aaron. And this is where I started getting confused again. Because now all of the people who were turned into Titans after Eren dies, the Titanism is reversed. So Connie, Jean, all those people who were turned into Titans, they revert back to being humans, and they lose the power of Titans because the founding Titan is dead. And I'm guessing this amoeba creature, which we didn't see get destroyed, but technically I guess it is destroyed, it no longer exists, or at least it's moved on to something else or whatever. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell, right? So they try to explain why Mikasa killing Eren freed Ymir from her 2,000-year love curse or whatever the fuck. And this is where I was like, man, he's really trying to overthink it. Look, I'm trying to figure out, put my finger directly on what the problem was with Ymir, because this is where we're supposed to start all of this stuff. So if you figure that part out, then things come across a little bit easier. So first, she was a goddess. That's not true. Now she's a slave girl, which is more accurate. That's true. She was the king's consort. She was forced to bear him children. Then she really had loved the king and wanted to be connected with him, or in some way she loved him but was still a slave and was mistreated. And I'm looking at my papers right now because there's so much about this particular issue that's written here. So we see that, and we are told that it was Ymir that was inside the head of Mikasa, giving her all these headaches. It was Ymir looking through her eyes. And I don't know what that means. Like, what does that mean for her to be in your head looking through your eyes? Because she is not a Titan. Like, it would make sense if she was a Titan, because then you could say, okay, well, Ymir has control over all these Titans, but Mikasa is not a Titan. Now, I'm sitting here just saying, like, okay, and we are told that Mikasa killing Eren freed Ymir from her nightmarish love of King Fritz. I find that to be confusing. Like, all of these people are dead. Like, I get that there might be some kind of spiritual connection here, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about some high spiritual connection between Ymir and King Fritz, where she feels like she still has to serve the royal family, which is what we are told. But I'm just kind of also like, she has all of the abilities to control all of these other Titans, and she's collecting these people up at the path, a place where they say life and death has no meaning, where the past and the present and the future are all together. And Eren talks about it too, where after he's dead, I guess he had a conversation with Armin before he died about how the founding Titan is kind of driving him crazy. Like the memories and the visions, how the past and the present, none of it matters. It all just happens at one time. And somehow he said that, he knew Berthold wasn't supposed to die when he did. And there was like some shock on the face of Armin, but he just kind of moved on from it. So we never got closure on that point either. WG Phil says, are the Ackermans metahumans with Titan DNA? That would be the best answer for it, which I think I would have to probably go back into the earlier volumes, because I don't remember seeing anything like that in there. But there was a statement that the Ackermans were they were immune to certain elements that other Eldians were susceptible to. So I don't know. Like, for instance, the Ackermans could not be controlled by Zeke's voice or whatever. So they were like the perfect people to attack him and be able to kill him because they couldn't be controlled by him. But I don't remember hearing that the Ackermans were some kind of genetic anomaly, but maybe they were. And this may be one of those things where, you know, if I had done a run through of the entire series, I probably would have noted that somewhere. But I don't remember seeing that. And you know what? That's going to be a good question for me to go and check later, because that might actually be the case. And if that is the case, then why Mikasa specifically? You know? And then you get the idea that all of this was meant to be, that it was Aaron's destiny to do all of this stuff because he made it happen. And you were told this during the part where they mentioned that the Attack Titan has the ability to control essentially his own future. So despite the fact that he did not have the Attack Titan yet and was not born, he was somehow manipulating his father and manipulating what his father wanted and creating a world that was susceptible to the things that he wanted to do. Again, later on, you're told that he has no real control because as now he's the founding Titan, he has that going on in his mind too. And that's when I realized, like, this is a little too complex. Like, something you don't need this many branches, in a story, you know, because you're looking at this thing and I'm like, okay, I'm getting confused. I don't know what the connection to Ymir and Mikasa is. I don't know how that works. They didn't spend any time, really, I don't think, with that. Even if you want to say the Ackerman DNA is some kind of metahuman DNA, which I truly believe that it is, because they seemingly have skills and strength that other humans don't have. But it seems like it would be something that would have had with Kenny. He would have had it as well. Levi also would have had it, but they never showed that. All right, so it says from the wiki, they are human mutate through selective breeding to protect the royal family with Titan science. So is that Titan DNA, or are they something else? Uh, I don't know. Like, it's a really odd situation. It's really odd, and it still doesn't explain like why Ymir was in Mikasa's head. Like, that's not fully explained. So we get to Aaron. Now, Aaron's story is meant to be sad. Yeah, okay, so it's Titan DNA. Okay. So we get to Aaron's story, which is supposed to be sad. Um, because despite the fact that we're not sure whether he's in control of his own thoughts or not, we're not like, after he's dead, it makes it sound like he had no real control over his own thoughts. But before, it seemed like he had ultimate control over his own thoughts, and he was actually making these things happen and making these decisions on his own. So when you have this level of complex psychology going on, where these characters have the memories of other people, they have some kind of spiritual connection to other people. Some can see the past, some can see the future, some can influence the past, some can influence the future. And then all of this stuff is going on in one body, where he says, out of, pretty much written, that the founding titan in his head made things weird and he felt like he had to do this. So it seems like he was not making a decision on his own, but that he was being influenced. But there was nothing you could do about the influence because you technically can't get rid of it. He had already consumed all the DNA. So like you can't undo it. And that confused me because I'm saying like, okay, is what happened his fault or not? You know, ultimately, he's the one who had to pay the price for it because he's the one who had to get killed. But we're sitting here saying, okay, was it Emir's influence? Was it Zeke? Was it, somebody else? Like, clearly, there was enough of Aaron's thought process in it because what you get from his mission is that he's going to destroy the rest of the world, but not paradise, rather. He wants to protect that island because he wants to protect his friends. Okay, that part we get. But then why are we talking about him being influenced by the founding titan and all this other kind of stuff? It's like, okay, why not just leave it as this is what Aaron wanted to do? And I guess what they were trying to do was mitigate some of the hellish nature of this thing, you know. So I'm just sitting here like, making it so that he was the horror that he hated. He became what he hated. When he was a little boy, he hated Titans because they were destructive and they had destroyed his society, and he was afraid of them, but he also hated them. And then he became that. He became the destroyer of the world using the power of the Titans. But he did so under the belief that he could protect Paradise and the rest of his friends by doing so. And at the end, his Armin is saying, like, basically, oh yeah, we betrayed Aaron. And I'm like, you betrayed the guy is gonna kill everybody. Like, it's just again, I'm flummoxed at this position here that we got, where it's unnecessarily knotted. I think instead of trying to make things simple, it seemed like we had already done the damage of turning Aaron into a mass murderer. How can we make it not his fault at the very goddamn end? And this is a recurring theme with anime, with the exception of maybe Dragon Ball and maybe a couple of other ones. You get like in Naruto, yeah, Madara Uchiha. He's just being manipulated by a higher power. That becomes a Yu Yu Hakusho becomes another one where characters aren't really evil; they're being manipulated by some kind of circumstance, or there's a circumstance that happened, like Shinobu Sensui, who he got cancer, and all of a sudden that drove him crazy because he had brain cancer or some shit like that. Or Toguro wasn't really evil. Yeah, he murdered all of these people, he killed Genkai, but he wasn't really evil. He was just bored because he had all these powers and he had nobody to test them against. He was tired of living. It's like, why can't people just make bad fucking decisions and just be bad people? Like, so it seemed to me that the author tried to mitigate your hatred for Aaron by saying that at least there was some manipulation going on there, that somebody or some memory or something was influencing his behavior. And earlier in the series, and of course they set it up because Armin thinks that Zeke is manipulating Aaron. And that is what you're supposed to believe too. You're supposed to believe that Aaron is being manipulated by somebody else. And then as many times as Aaron tells you over and over again that he's not being manipulated, that he's choosing to do this is the only way he can see to fix this problem, And then, and the problem being that the Eldians are, or the Eldians on Paradise Island are a target. So when you look at it from that perspective, he was making a clear and concise decision that he was going to spare his friends over the rest of humanity, which is evil. It's evil. It's significantly less evil than what Zeke wanted to do, if we're being honest. And we are left with the, well, maybe he was being manipulated. He didn't mean some of the stuff that he said. For instance, he went back on hating Mikasa. He said earlier that he hated her and he never could stand her and all this kind of stuff. And then after he's dead, after she's cut his head off, we realized that he had a conversation with Armin where he talked about how he wanted to live and he wanted to be with her all the time. He wanted to hang out with his friends and he wanted to, be normal. He wanted things to be as they were. And there's no good reason why they couldn't be. Like we don't see any good reason why he couldn't have made the decision not to do what he did. The only reason that would make sense for him to have no choice is if he's being manipulated, if he's being controlled. Then we can get the idea that he couldn't help but do what he did. But he's saying, I don't want to do this. I love Mikasa. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her and the rest of you guys on the island. And yet he's going to murder everybody, and the only thing that they could do is kill him. And yet he's saying, oh, yeah, I want to live, though. So it's like, I don't see no way out of this, like it literally doesn't make sense. And I remember sitting there trying to figure it out. Like I didn't spend a hell of a lot of time on it. And it's probably why I looked about my analysis a little bit off, because I didn't sit down and really stress over it. Like the story as it wraps up, things are supposed to make more sense at the end. But it seems like the more you read this shit, the less sense it makes. So we're sitting here and Aaron's dead. And now here comes another one of my favorite parts of the series. Is that the only person who really cares outside of Armin is Mikasa. Now the rest of them, they liked Aaron. He was a cool kid, but he murdered a bunch of people. They kind of moved on with their lives. And yet we see like several pages of Mikasa giving him a burial, and she's sitting there talking to him. She's crying, saying how she missed him. And then there's like several panels of, time where she comes to visit him. And we get some really neat stuff in that particular part because we see her as a married woman. We don't see who she's married to. We just see him from behind. It looks like it might be Jean. And she puts some flowers on his grave. And then we see in the next panel, she's a little bit older and somebody's helping her put flowers on the grave. And meanwhile, you see the backgrounds are changing. So the world is changing. You see that, it's a regular village when she's younger. As it gets older, things start becoming a little bit more dilapidated. You see that there's more wars going on. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then we see her finally get buried, and she's still wearing the scarf that he gave her. And she's an old woman. So she died an old woman. But she never forgot Aaron. She never got over it. And that's the parallel with Ymir, because Ymir loved King Fritz even to her dying day, despite the fact that he had mistreated her and that he was a tyrant who used her to kill his enemies. And so you get the idea that perhaps are they trying to parallel King Fritz and Aaron? That even though Aaron wasn't didn't treat Mikasa like a slave, she was, in a sense, a slave. In so much that she fought his battles for him, right? So you had Ymir fighting the battles of King Fritz with her powers of, being a Titan. And so now that we know that the Ackermans have Titan DNA, she's a mutate. She's using her powers to protect Eren, to take care of him. And she is always by his side, never to leave it, never to leave his side. Similar to Ymir, who could never leave the side of King Fritz. But unlike Ymir, who'd never had the guts to take out King Fritz when she was being abused, Mikasa did do that. She saw that Eren had gone too far. He had lost himself. He was no longer the person that she cared about. And to be honest, the best way to save him was to kill him. And so she cut his head off and she killed him. And this was supposedly how Ymir became free of her, I guess what they call it, a 2,000-year-old curse or whatever. Because and it's a really poignant scene where, as you see Eren's head come off, you see Ymir behind Mikasa with a smile on her face. Where it's like, yes, this is the right answer. He lost control of himself. You checked him, which is something that she could never do. But you do see that maybe, and there's a scene with her and her children, and then there's King Fritz there with an arrow in his chest. And you get that sort of, if she had the guts, she should have killed King Fritz when he lost his mind and stopped using his Titan powers to defend and started using them to attack. Even though he didn't have the Titan powers, he was using her. He used her to defend at first, and then he started using her to attack. And now you have a parallel here with this one. I can see that that's what they were trying to do, but you never got a sense throughout the entire story that Mikasa was a slave. It was always that Eren wanted to do what he wanted to do, and Mikasa was going along with it. It was never you come with me, we're going to go do this. He never really gave her orders. He never did anything wrong to her. So it's hard to just look at the parallel and see it like, okay, well, she was some kind of slave. And I don't know. WG Phil says, I can see the parallel since Eren did save her when her family was murdered, so she was indebted by the Jaegers. That's true to a degree, and this is the same thing with Ymir, where she was saved by King Fritz, and after her family, but King Fritz also was the one who killed her family, so that was kind of weird, right? So, but she was, lived with him and whatever. It's very weird. Like, I see where the parallels are coming from. I just don't see why those parallels needed to be made. WG Phil says, to be fair, what would have happened to Ymir if she let Fritz die? Rivals would still attempt to kill her. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. At the same time, though, she was mistreated to the very end, and then the mistreatment was passed on to her children. So it was like she cursed her entire bloodline to being slaves and indentured servants to other people. Because after she was killed, she was fed to her own children. And then, of course, those children were turned into Titans and used to kill and eat people. And then we see in Marley that the Eldians are kept and used as essentially slaves or indentured servants and forced to use their powers to fight on behalf of Marley. And then if these Eldians were to get out of place, they're injected with spinal fluid and turned into pure Titans to roam paradise forevermore as essentially a zombie. So they're basically used her entire bloodline as slaves. Now, this has some element of zombie lore to it, because I've written stories, of course, One of the things that you get with zombie lore is that zombies are slaves, essentially. They're brainless and they're controlled by whatever mambo or whatever that created them. That part of zombie lore is almost always left out. It's almost like random infections and different things like that that create zombies in modern day. But historically speaking, zombieism was like a curse. And you were cursed to be like the 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 dead slave, the slave of a the opposite of a vampire. A vampire is the noble dead, while the zombies are the bottom feeders. And you get some of that not zombie, but vampire lore, where they could create ghouls, which are very, very low level vampires with no control and that sort of thing. They're basically just monsters. But so that's where you kind of where you're going with this is you kind of when you start looking at the Titans like they're zombies, they have no consciousness. They feed even though they have they don't get any sustenance from feeding. It becomes like almost animalistic type of ritual. And you look at it from that perspective, you're like, okay, this kind of makes a little bit more sense. Where, Ymir was a slave, and therefore her entire bloodline are slaves. And it continues with the blood curse, which is part of the element of Attack on Titan at a certain point, where all of the Eldians are responsible for what the past Eldians did. So it's almost as if a hierarchy is built into the bloodline, where if you're a Titan, you're created to be a slave to the Marleyans, just like Ymir was a slave to King Fritz. And when you look at it from that perspective too, you get that Aaron's theme, especially in the later part of the series, and it was actually the theme throughout the entire part, is that he wanted to be free. And freedom at first was what we said before last week, with him and Armin just wanted to see the ocean. They just wanted to see the world beyond the walls. That was freedom to them. Being able to live their lives Titan free beyond the walls. And as soon as they got beyond the walls, they found that, there was greater danger beyond the walls. And that kind of led us into the Marley arc and that kind of stuff, right? So you get the idea that Aaron could not be free due primarily to the fact that once he became the Attack Titan, he only had 13 more years of life or whatever. And there was no way of sort of escaping that. So it became another prison for him, that he was able to use this power to help people, to help his friends, to destroy their enemies. At the same time, though, it shortened his own life. So that was very, very interesting. That was very interesting. So I'm pretty sure there's some more stuff here. I haven't been looking at my notes. I haven't been looking at my notes, but let me look at my notes one time, and it says that so I'm going to talk about the war stuff. I want to talk about that, but I'm going to try and look for something else. Okay, so here was another thing with Ymir that kind of really pitched me into something. So the pathways, this spiritual realm where there's nothing but grains of sand, and there's no life, there's no death, and etc. And Zeke meets Armin there, and you get the conversation. It says that Ymir connects all of the Titans together on this path, on these paths, and you get the idea that they say that Ymir was searching for something. but they wasn't sure what it was. And it seems, and this was one way I analyzed it, because I really wish I could show you like the paperwork I'm looking at here, where you get the general idea that maybe she wanted to be loved and accepted by King Fritz because of how they always framed the shot with her being just, several steps away from him, but always looking at him, as if she wished she could be closer. And perhaps that desire for love and acceptance, it was a problem. But then you get the idea that she had maybe a one-sided affection, and he didn't really feel the same way for her, and that was the issue. He looked at her like a weapon, where she looked at him in a different way. And so I'm just, again, that was me trying to make sense of this whole Emir thing. So I don't think I got it, if we're being honest. So to me, it just felt like the whole story was a big bowl of nothing matters. And this is where we start talking about the war. Because throughout the series, we not even the series, but just because it wasn't throughout the series, it was throughout the later part of the series, specifically the last several chapters, where despite the fact that horrible things are happening, the racism against the Eldians continued. And it's probably the most distressing part of this entire ordeal, is that you would think you got hundreds of thousands of gigantic creatures stomping everything in sight, that people would come together in defense of this. And there was still the Marlians pulling guns on Eldians, even at the end of the series, after all of the people who were turned into Titans are reverted back to being humans. And you get a sense that, the very concept of Titans are gone. Then they still are finding new reasons to fight. So the wars never ended. They're gearing up for more war, even as the series is going off, even as the series is ending, even as Mikasa is an old lady hanging out with Eren at his burial place. They're dropping bombs on cities. You get a sense that nothing really changed. And I'm like, that's distressing as fuck. That nothing changed. They just, look, I know human it's human nature. I get it. This is part of the story, is Eldians are humans too. That's part of the story. And so they have the same flaws as all human beings, and human beings they have conflict and they end up going to war. But to have these gigantic battles and this, what's the word I'm looking for? This genocidal situation occurring, which could kill all life on the planet with the exception of a small number of people, that they would not be able to put their differences aside even for a short time, is incredibly nihilistic. Incredibly nihilistic. Like it's truly sad. It's one of the saddest elements of this series, is that, oh, okay, you can't turn into Titans anymore. Okay, we're still going to fight you though. And I'm like, wait a minute. Wait. It seemed to me that it was pointless. Like this was the the point of the series, I thought, when we got to this point, was to galvanize the Marlins and the Eldians against a common enemy. And they would find out that they're all in the same boat and they're not so different. Similar to what you see in alien movies and that kind of stuff all the time, where, people who usually are against each other, they work together to fight the outsiders. And you would have, in this situation, would be Aaron and the Titans. They would work together to defeat them because it's in their best interest to do so. But the Marlians are like, nah, we'd rather shoot these Eldians, even as these colossal Titans are going to step on over us. It's like, this is a damning critique of humanity. All right, it's a damning critique of humanity that literally shows us that nobody has learned anything in this entire situation. There's no improvement in humanity. The only thing that happened is that the Titans don't exist anymore, which I guess in a sense it fulfilled Aaron's original mission statement at the beginning of the series, where he said he hated the Titans. He wanted to kill all the Titans. He ended up doing that. He ended up killing all the Titans on Paradise. And then, because he sacrificed himself, all of the Titans are no more. So in a sense, he did what he was, what he planned out to do from the beginning. I still feel like we could have done that in a better way rather than him killing all those people. But it's a very, very bizarre scenario to have war just continue and continue and continue, despite the fact that the reason that they were at war was because of the power of the Titans, and there was fear that power would exist and how it could be used. And now that fear is gone, and yet they just find new reasons to fight. So it's like, man, maybe Aaron was right. Maybe he should have killed everybody. Maybe he should have killed everybody. So I don't know. I really didn't like it. I really did not like the end of the series. I feel like nothing was really achieved. There were some sweet moments, I think, in terms of in character moments, like when Connie realized that the Titans are gone, that he might get his mom back. Like that was nice. That was a nice sentimental moment. When Falco was on the boat and a bird flew overhead and a feather came floating down towards him, and he remembers that when he was the Beast Titan, he could fly. Like that was a nice little moment. When you see that the crew is still together 3 or 4 years or whatever after they call the Battle of Heaven and Earth, and they're still hanging out, all of them. They're still buddies for the most part. They're still joking with each other. They still remember everybody who sacrificed, and they're still fighting for Paradise. That was a nice moment too. But to see that the world hasn't changed at all in that whole situation, that's dark, man. That means we had all these people get stomped to death, indiscriminate of whether they were Eldians or Marlians. And nobody learned anything. The surviving people learned nothing. Like you were better off getting stomped then. You didn't learn anything. You were better off getting stomped. It was gross, and I get it. Like I didn't read a lot about why other people were upset about this series, but some of the stuff that I did see was kind of right on the nose of what I came to on my own. And I was greatly disappointed in the end of the series. To me, though, there were still some strong moments, so I'm not gonna say it was complete trash. But to me, the strongest moment in the final act of the series was the Zeke and Armin conversation and them realizing what life is really about. And Armin, basically waking Zeke up, saying that no, life isn't about just endless growth. It's not endless multiplication, not endless growth. Life is about little things here that you enjoy. The wind on your face, conversations and fun times with friends, relationships. That's what life is about. Life is interactive. And that being the thing that, snapped Zeke out of his, I guess, psychosis. And him saying, like, man, you know what? I was a much better person when I was, playing ball, with Mr. Kasaber. I was, a better person then. And you realize that, Bertholdt and Reiner, they were not always bad guys. They sucked, but they were not always the worst guys in the world. They had some positive moments too. And you're like, okay, that was good. But then it's followed by just more darkness, just unyielding darkness. So the good guys end up winning in the end, of course. Most of the planet ends up getting killed, but they win in the end, which is a positive. Unfortunately, they broke a bunch of characters to do it, and I don't think that was maybe necessary. WG Phil says, "Do you consider this more character breaking than One More Day?" Yes, because look, Spider-Man did something stupid in One More Day. Okay, he basically tried to save his Aunt May by making a deal with Mephisto. Making a deal with the literal devil, that's the shits. Right? That's pretty bad. But nobody died. All right, that was the thing. Like he made a deal with Mephisto to stop somebody from dying, which you would think he would have been more mature and would have just let her die. I mean, Aunt May is an old lady. In this situation, you had a character go from being a savior and a hero to being a mass murderer who killed, in their own words, 80% of the planet and destroyed not just life, but civilizations, buildings destroyed, businesses, hospitals, libraries, schools. There were children destroyed. That's one of the. It is on par, if we're being honest, with the Hell Hydra Captain America. I think it's probably even beyond that. Like this is one of the biggest character breakings I've seen in a long time. Like that one was. This is bad. This is pretty fucking bad. And the fact is, there was no way that you could do a redemption arc, and that's one of the things that happened at the end. Is after Aaron is dead, you get a conversation between him and Armin, where of course he says that he doesn't want to die, he wants to be with them, and he wants to live with Mikasa and all this kind of stuff, but he doesn't know he doesn't know whether he can be forgiven for all the stuff that he's done. And it's like, no, you can't. You can have characters do some things that are dastardly, some things that are underhanded, but you can't have a character do something that you can't turn away from this. Like Isayama literally drew children being stomped by titans to let you know, and to make it even worse. Aaron, you see in an earlier chapter in the final arc, he has visions of the little thief boy who's going to be killed. And Aaron knows the boy is going to be killed, and he apologizes to him before it happens. It's like there is no, what redemption could you possibly hope for? What how do you redeem a character that is this depraved? You know? And trying to give him some kind of emotional twist up about it, like, oh, I don't want to do this. It's got to be some kind of mental thing or whatever. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't get over it. This is next level character breaking right here. You know, I don't think there's been anything that's happened in American comics in a long time that has surpassed this. Look, there was the Flash was turned into a murderer in Heroes in Crisis. I think it was Wally West Flash that was turned into a murderer, and people were extremely pissed about that. That's not as bad as what Aaron in Attack on Titan did. Hail Hydra Captain America, who goes on a killing spree and becomes king tyrant of the United States. That was close to what Aaron did. But the parallels there are almost exactly the same, as Captain America became everything that he hated. And Aaron became everything that he hated. The thing is, it comes from this old story idea about if you fight evil enough, or if you stare into the abyss long enough, the abyss starts to stare into you, or be careful when you fight monsters, lest you become a monster yourself. The point of stories where that is you can have characters for which that is the problem. Like if there was a member of the team who had lost their mind, turned heel, and decided that joining Zeke and all this kind of stuff was the right thing to do, okay, you could do that. You could do that with Jean or Connie or somebody like that. You can't do it with the main character. Because the main character is supposed to be the moral center of, at least not the moral center, because it's not always the case, but that's the person we're looking to solve the ultimate problem. And Aaron solved the problem of Attack on Titan. The problem was the Titans. Aaron solved it by getting his head cut off. That solved it. But look at the damage that he did in order to do it. How would I change the ending? Well, I think I said last week that I wouldn't have even had a Marleyan arc. I think that probably he just got very caught up in the success of Attack on Titan and didn't want it to end. And because it just seems like that sometimes with these mangaka, that they get into the series and they're like, oh, this is great, making tons of money off this thing. And they may have some ideas plotted out, but they almost always go beyond, because you're incentivized to create more and to do more, And so when you're incentivized to create more and do more, you start doing and creating more. But I think this story would have been so much better if you had cut out a lot of stuff. If you had cut off the entire Marley arc, but took some of the elements that took place in it and moved it to before they escaped the walls. But then once they escape the walls and they get to the ocean, they realize that they're on an island and the rest of the world has no knowledge of the Titans, don't know what's going on, and they go join the rest of the world. And the rest of the world doesn't hate them. Like it's more or less like they get to go and be regular people, go on adventures and do all the stuff that they would normally do. That would be freedom. So to me, that would have been the perfect ending. is for them to get off that nightmare island, see new things, learn about the secret of the Titans and all this kind of stuff. And you could have had a lot of the characters die. You still could have had some of the elements of the Titan lore and those kinds of things. You still could have had a lot of that stuff. But I think you needed to end it on a much more positive note. Like, ended it with the, oh, well, Aaron's dead, but the world goes on. The only person who really remembers him is Mikasa. Everybody else, nobody. It seemed like nobody else came to visit his grave at all. Even though there's a certain small scene there where, you see a couple of other people, but it looks like it might be Mikasa's family because she's older. And you're like, literally, we learned nothing. The war is still going on. All the other characters just basically moved on. There's no happy ending. It's sad, it's depressing, and it's nihilism. From the moment Eren kills the first innocent people on Marley to the end, this thing got ugly. Like, it got really ugly. But even that first attack could have been redeemed, because you could say, well, they were about to declare war on the island. But Jesus Christ, man. Once you read further beyond that, you're like, geez, this is horrible. He's kidnapping his own friends. It's like, how do you justify and redeem a character from this stuff? I don't think you can, and once I realized that the characters were beyond redemption, I stopped enjoying the story, really. I'm like, let's get to the end. That's probably what made it so difficult for me to analyze certain parts of it, because I was like, look, let's just get through this, And then there's tons and tons of filler with these other characters that they introduced, the black guy and, all the people, the cult that, puts Eren on a pedestal, that weird stuff. It's like, I don't know. It would have been, it would have been, it would have been nice if we'd have had a more, a happier ending. And look, even if you're going to have a sad ending, and you're going, as long as the sad ending leads to something, it could work. For instance, if Eren was going to die at the end, you still could have done that. But if his death changed the world, and his death, he's held in high regard after dying, then more people can respect it and understand it. Or at least if he goes out like a cowboy, like Spike Spiegel in Cowboy Bebop. Like, you can do stuff like this where the main character dies and it still be considered a good ending, even if it's sad. But to say that the ending is sad, depressing, and then when you look at it and you say, like, what really has changed? With the exception of the Titans, the world is pretty much the same goddamn place. I guess there's no walls anymore, so I guess that's a positive. They got rid of the walls, they got rid of the Titans. Everybody's free to continue bombing each other and killing each other over being Eldians and Marlins all over again. It's kind of ridiculous, bro. WG Phil says his manga got an anime, an adaptation and movie quicker than most popular animes. It took Dragon Ball 4 or 5 years to get an anime, but Attack on Titan started in 2010 and got an anime in 2012, 2013. And that's because if you actually look at it and read it from the beginning, oh my fucking God. It's a nightmare. It is fantastic. It's nightmarish. Like, I see why it got popular so fast. But I also see how the drop-off happened, where I started seeing fewer and fewer people dressed in Attack on Titan gear the longer the series went on. And then by the time the series was over, I really didn't see that many, And that happens. It happens when as I frequent cons and things like that. the longer a series goes, more often the fewer and fewer cosplayers you see, except for Naruto, Dragon Ball, and Berserk, and One Piece. Like those are only those, and yeah, those are pretty much the only ones where you are guaranteed to see people wearing Luffy hats, the straw hats or whatever. You're guaranteed to see a Goku. You're guaranteed to see the Atatsuki, the villains from Naruto, the coats with the clouds and shit. You're guaranteed to see them. And but Attack on Titan, oh my God, it was the hottest show for like 2 or 3 years. And then it fell off a fucking cliff. And it was like nobody was watching it, you know? And then it was something similar with Demon Slayer too. Demon Slayer started out very, very hot. And then I didn't see a lot of Demon Slayer cosplay and stuff like that as it progressed. And then Demon Slayer ended very quickly too. So maybe that had something to do with it. But Full Metal Alchemist was another one where I used to see a lot of Full Metal Alchemist cosplay when it was on television. I saw a little bit of it when it was over, but Full Metal Alchemist, the original series, had kind of a sad ending that everybody hated, and but everybody realized that the manga wasn't over yet, so they blamed the producers of the anime for how bad the ending was. When Brotherhood came out, everybody was on, "Yay! I love Full Metal Alchemist." Death Note is another one. You see a lot of Death Note too, but Attack on Titan, I've never seen a fall off like that in terms of a show that people know, like, enjoyed, and then you almost you don't see the audience grow with it. And now I see why. It's pretty much they hit a part of the show and people were kind of like, eh. And I legitimately thought a lot of why Attack on Titan had kind of fallen a little bit in popularity was because of sort of the left-wing progressivism that attached itself to the series and saying it was fascist. I thought that was probably one of the reasons why, we weren't seeing a lot of it. And there, of course, is fascist elements in Attack on Titan. It's a military show. It's a show about a military force fighting overgrown human beings called Titans that eat people. They have a much greater problem than, the capitalist class or whatever, the bourgeoisie. They're being eaten by giant stuff. Yeah, whatever works in that scenario, right? I thought maybe that's what it was. Right? Like, oh, this a fascist society. It's military. People also say that Full Metal Alchemist was fascist too, and they were also correct in that regard as well. But I think it ended up still being an extremely popular series, and I see why it got popular so fast. That's why I see why Demon Slayer got popular so fast. It's such a sweet story. It's Tanjiro is trying to protect his little sister. He's carrying her around in a backpack. It's incredibly sweet. And sometimes when something starts, it starts out very strong, and then of course over time it becomes a little bit more tepid. Not Demon Slayer, but Goblin Slayer is another one. Goblin Slayer, for the first couple of weeks it was out, was crazy. Now we're like, I think there are they 3 seasons into the Goblin Slayer? But they've defanged the series quite a bit. In the first series, there's like rapes and stuff. In the second, there isn't. So it's almost like they decided we're going to make it more palatable, and in doing so, probably killed part of the fan base. It's still violent. They still violently kill a bunch of goblins, but it's not nearly as violent as it was before, especially in terms of goblins doing horrible things to people. That stuff is all cut out. And then it becomes mostly about camaraderie and Goblin Slayer learning how to be friends and hunt things other than goblins. It's like, okay, that's not bad, uh, but Rising of the Shield Hero is another one that kind of started out strong and then died out. Usually after season one, most series kind of die out. But like I said, One Piece, Bleach, Naruto, um, shows like that, Dragon Ball, you see they're evergreen. You can find the mangas anywhere. Uh, you can see cosplayers anywhere. But Attack on Titan, I looked up the sales, and it should be like One Piece and all that kind of stuff, where it should have been evergreen. But that's not what I see when I look at. When I go to like cons and stuff, I don't see a lot of Attack on Titan. But I know it still has a sizable fan base online because I remember when the series ended in terms of the manga before it was collected into the omnibus, which is what I've been reading. It was trending on Twitter for several hours. so I knew something had happened on that damn thing that was detestable, but I was not reading along at that time. Okie dokie. So that's Attack on Titan. The end. Didn't like it. WG Phil says so. Basically, you wanted the ending to be the return Shiganashia arc where Berthold dies. I think that was a great scene where the team is trying to figure out who are they going to save between Erwin and Armin, and Aaron really pushed for Armin to be saved to the point where he pulled weapons on Levi, even though there was nothing he was going to be able to do about it. But I thought that was an incredibly touching scene, and I think that sometimes less is more. But the series was dark from the beginning. And usually, when you have something that's dark, you do things to lighten it up. And Asayama did that very well in terms of having characters that were colorful. Some of them were funny. Some of them were lovable. They were tough. They were heroic. And then as you started killing some of those characters off, you lost something, like you lost some of the humor. You lost some of the heart. And then you just get more and more darkness. You didn't replace it. And that's where I get the idea that maybe some of this stuff shouldn't have been done. Like it just maybe just shouldn't have been done. But I don't know. I saw that the guy who wrote Attack on Titan is very young too. He's not even 40, I don't think. I think he might be in his mid-30s. So he has no plans of writing anything else. He made that clear. This shit was so successful, he don't need to make anything else. But meanwhile, the guy who writes Spy Family, he's doing a bunch of side projects. He's been doing Blade of the Moon Princess. He did another one called Tista. Both of these came out this year. I got both of them. Tista is actually not too bad. Blade of the Moon Princess is funny. It's good too. It's neither one of them is Spy Family, but they're both pretty good. Spy Family also has died out a little bit. I think now that the story has really gotten started, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say it's dragging, but people are not as attached to Spy Family as they used to be. Spy Family used to be something that was everywhere. It kind of died down to Chainsaw Man. And part of what happened with Chainsaw Man was they switched from the main character beginning in after I want to say volume 11. They moved it to a different character. So he's still in the book, of course, but they're telling the story from a different perspective now. And so the fan base is kind of like, okay, warming up to this new thing. But the Chainsaw Man fan base is still kind of strong. Same can be said for One Punch Man. I still see a lot of One Punch Man too, but not nearly as much as when it first started. So manga have this really bizarre. When it first starts, it's the most popular thing on earth, and then 6 months, 8 months later, not so much. They don't have the staying power that like regular superhero comics does, which is I'm talking about in the United States, of course. But you would think something as popular as Attack on the Titan, which is an incredible worldwide brand. I think they've sold like tens of millions of copies, which puts them in rarefied air in terms of manga. And yet, don't see a lot of cosplay. Don't see a lot of interest in the brand anymore. And I think a lot of that comes from the ending. That's unfortunate. maybe he's a victim of his own success. Poor Asayama. He's lucky to have something so successful. But when you become a success so quickly, it does you do become difficult in how do you handle it. Like the lady who did Inuyasha, she got several successful manga. Like a lot. Most of them I've never even heard of. But I was very intrigued with Inuyasha when I first saw it. WG Phil says it might be hard to cosplay as Aaron's founding Titan. Yeah, but usually you still see the vertical maneuvering gear and the various military units. That's the stuff that you used to see. You used to always see somebody in a jacket at the very least at the cosplay, even if they weren't going all in with the Titan gear. They were at least wearing like survey corps jackets or something. But now barely even see that. Like it's crazy. And since the series is over, like, and as far as I know, I haven't watched the anime. I would imagine the anime is as accurate to the manga as everything else, as what I would expect. I don't see how the anime can't fix it. It's like the benefit of previous anime is that they had tons of filler and stuff that made the series last forever. Naruto lasted forever because there's tons of filler in it. Same thing with Dragon Ball, and I think One Piece also has tons of filler. And Fist of the North Star also had a lot of filler in it. And so that kept it on TV for a long time. It kept it popular and kept it warm as, you're in between volumes being released or you're in between seasons, getting back to the main story or whatever. Or you would have the benefit of them deviating from the main story in a way that might actually be better than what the mangaka is doing. Like I guarantee you like 60 to 70% of why Dragon Ball is so popular in the United States is because of what the translators and stuff did to Goku. Turning him into like a Superman like character, which was against what Toriyama wanted. But that decision is what made the series popular in the United States. Like that's what made everybody really enjoy the series. Is they thought Goku was like some kind of superhero, and shit, what the hell am I stepping on? Oh, but going back to the way things were, and going back to the original character dynamics, that created a longer lasting fan base because now you're going back and you're correcting what the previous generation did. It's the same thing with like Sailor Moon, where there was certain, I think, lesbian stuff that was edited out of Sailor Moon. So then when they started doing reboots, they put that stuff back in. So there were certain things that were taken out certain filler that was put in, and those kinds of things. That when you do the reboot, you could take the filler out, you could add some of the stuff in that was censored. You can get right back on track in terms of telling the story, and it keeps people involved. It keeps people engaged. Um, how would you explain Titans like the Warhammer Titan or the Beast Titan? Well, what we're looking at in terms of the different Titans' abilities is, I think a lot of that stuff was through the science and how the different Titans were created. Now, I do think that that was one of the things that they kind of missed out on fully explaining, is how certain Titan abilities manifest. Like, not just the bodies, like why was Zeke's Beast Titan a gorilla, but Falco's Beast body was a bird of some kind. Um, like those kinds of things could probably, you could, have a conversation about that, you know. Um, but that's something that definitely could have been explained. But how these Titans came to be would definitely should have been something you should have spent some time trying to explain, because each Titan also has their own abilities. Like the Beast Titan has well, the Beast Titan that Zeke has the ability to, throw things at high velocity because he has orangutan arms. Like, how did that ability develop? And you would only be able to guess that it developed through scientific discovery and through training, much like we saw with Aaron's ability to do different things like hardening his body and stuff like that, that the Titan body is capable of doing certain things, and you could train it to do specific tasks, But then you should explain to people like why, like the cart Titan, which is, to me, most useless of all Titans, was the cart Titan. Like, I don't even remember seeing like an ancestor to the cart Titan. It was just like, hey, this Titan carries weapons and she's very fast. But I like the jaw Titan. I thought that was pretty cool, with the heart and teeth and the heart and claws, everything. Um, I think Zeke's Titan was mostly because of him playing catch. Yeah, I mean that would make sense. If if it was explained that way, if it was explained that it's a manifestation of the internal feelings, attitudes, or whatever of the person who is the wielder, you know, then that would make sense. You would say, oh, okay, so the individual person dictates what's up with the Titan. Like somehow Falco knew he could fly, with his Beast Titan powers, even though he had never done it. He just kind of believes that he could fly, and then it turns out that he could. It's like, well, instead of burying us in this Marlian, Eldian, you're a Marlian, I'm going to eat you. You're an alien, I'm going to shoot you. How about we take time to explain how these fucking Titans came to be? You know, like we get told that these are the 9 Titans of ancestry or whatever, 9 Titans of history, but we're not told how these things were created in the least bit. And to me, I would have liked for some kind of origin story, especially for the little used Titans like the Cart Titan and the Warhammer Titan and that kind of stuff. But the Warhammer Titan, it has seemingly a higher level of hardening ability. Falco is a jaw Titan. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, because he ended up eating Galliard. Right, you're right. But it was it was I lost my train of thought. Shit. What was I thinking about? I was thinking about something. It slipped my mind. But yeah, you're right. Falco is the jaw Titan. I forgot about that other guy. He got killed and he um wasn't a lot of him in the series either. He was there a lot, but he was just a guy that was there to bully and Rainer. But when you look at it, oh, the hardening. Okay, so yeah, so all the Titans well, all of the I guess you could say special Titans had the ability to harden. So the attack Titan could do it, and Aaron was using it to patch holes in the walls. Annie could do it, which oddly enough, we never saw another female Titan, like Titan that was like Annie, not like a regular one. So you're looking at it from the perspective of like, she was the first time you really saw hardening, like she could harden certain parts of her body. And then you see that the armored Titan, which is all armor for the most part, and somehow would still manage to be weak, which I guess is a symbol of Rainer, who, despite the fact that he was the armored Titan, he was very soft, and he was often a pushover. They even joked about how he called him the armored Titan, and he's always getting beat up. But if you say like, okay, well, the Titans have the ability to harden, and a lot of their abilities are based off that hardening. Then okay, you got the Jaw Titan, whose teeth and claws are especially hard, and then you have the Attack Titan and the Female Titan, which could both harden like specific parts of the body, feet, hands, etc., to a greater degree, and the Armored Titan, which has the same element, but you don't see that in Zeke, I don't think. Like, I don't think Zeke ever showed any specifically uh, extensive hardening abilities. So it's, I get it. In terms of story, you don't want to over explain everything. And that's why I say, like, sometimes you don't really need to go into too much detail, especially when magic or something like that is involved. You want to leave a certain level of mystery. But I would like to know how certain Titans came to be, especially with these abilities. I think the original daughters of Ymir probably inherited 3 specific Titans, since it's 3 times 3 is 9. So then how did they separate that? How did the different types of Titans separate? I know. I mean, that's hard to explain. The only real way to explain it, as far as I'm concerned, is by saying it was created by science. And scientists studied the Titans and manipulated the spinal fluid or whatever to create these different types of Titans. That way you can basically wrap it up. I think it's all been better explained by science anyway. There was a little too much spirituality and mumbo jumbo, a little too much philosophy, trying to be deep, trying to be deep and complex, and then went a little far, you know. But I don't know. So hopefully, um, now that Attack on Titan is done, I'm looking for something else for us to do next week. Um, I lost my movie channel. I used to have a certain site that I use to watch movies, And I was going to use that to watch a movie and read a manga. No, sorry, a comic. But I think it was probably going to be Sin City. But I got Sin City on DVD. I just don't have a DVD player. All Quiet on the Western Front is a World War I film about a young German soldier who was eager to go to war but lost everything. Something tells me I probably have seen that, and I don't remember. You know, you should watch Enemy at the Gates. That's a good one too. I like that movie far more than I thought of. Because if you like war films, I really don't care for war movies because like war is hell. But and war movies tend to lean towards nihilism, not add a lot of levity to the stories. But some people love that stuff. So I still got My Hero Academia to read, Chainsaw Man. Still not done with Ghost in the Shell. Still got a bunch of stuff over here to get into. So I'm probably about to go and do that. Stop by, talked about Attack on Titan. Now I gotta find something for us to talk about next week. I think Promethea, book 5, will be here sometime this week. Hopefully, it'll come in and I'll be able to talk about that a little bit too. Because I think at that point I will have the whole series. So we can talk about that. There's 3 versions of All Quiet on the Western Front: the 1931 and 1979 TV movie, and the recent 2022 version, but the movie is more accurate to the autobiography. The 1979 TV movie. Oh, so somebody wrote a book basically on about this. And then this guy, oh yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about. Road to Perdition. I don't know if you guys ever seen that, but there's a graphic novel called Road to Perdition. It turned into a movie starring Tom Hanks. It's Tom Hanks as a gangster. I love the movie. I just read the graphic novel, so I'm probably gonna do our first digging in of the new year. Will probably be Road to Perdition. Simply because I loved the movie and the graphic novel was pretty good. I like crime noir. I like it a lot more than people. I like it more than superheroes, but not many people can really get into crime noir. Not many people can get into crime stories. So stuff like Reckless and Killer Be Killed, the Brute Baker stuff, Darwin Cook, his work on Parker, Road to Perdition, which is a true crime, mafia style thing. There's another one I got over there called Silence. That's pretty goddamn good. That's why I'm getting Sin City, collecting that because I really loved it as a crime story, a series of crime stories that are all interconnected, and it was the blueprint for Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips' Criminal, which is the same concept, which is all of these crime stories taking place in the same universe, and they cross over. They have some level of crossover, and because they have similar, not themes, but similar places in them. So I really love that idea. Can't beat it. I like it more than superheroes, to be honest. But it's hard for me to find like some crime noir stuff that I really like. But I'm a big fan of like Donald Going's novels, shit like that. So that's why when I posted that one, those couple of pages, that's what I was thinking of at the time. Because I was reading I think I was reading Road to Perdition at the time when I posted that. And I was like, hey, I wanted to show people that, I like writing crime stories. You know, I particularly like that. That's a good one. I still feel like there was something. There's some tweaks I could probably make to the story. Um, but it's finished. It's a finished story. But it's been finished for like 3 years, I think. But I'm gonna try to think up some more stuff because I haven't written. I didn't write anything this year. I haven't written anything new this year. I haven't written anything new in probably 18 months because I haven't had a laptop. Which I'm probably gonna get myself a laptop for Christmas eventually, so I can get back to writing. But I also want to read all the stuff that I have and then sit down and get back to writing. So, but thanks everybody for stopping by. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.